What's up, everybody? Cody Rupta here. I'm a senior engineering technician for Van Cleef Engineering Associates, and today we're going to go over how to run a soil permeability class rating test. It's also known as the hydrometer test. All right, follow along. Okay, so before you start the soil permeability class rating test, what you're going to need are a few different things. All right, first you're going to need one of these sheets here. All right, this is the data sheet. You can find this on the R drive. It's saved under soil lab tests, and it's the hydrometer test sheet. So that's where you can find it. All right, this is where you're going to fill out all of your data. You're also, you can find a PDF copy of this, but this is the procedure. So you can read the procedure. The procedure pretty much explains it easily enough. Or you could just watch this video. Right, this video is going to go through how to do it as well. All right, so those are like the two first things you're going to need as far as paperwork is concerned. You're also going to want to make sure that your temperature is as close to 70 degrees as you can get it. Right now we're at like 74, which is fine. If it's over a little bit, that's okay. You're just going to have a larger correction factor. But you want this to be as close to 70, even like 68 degrees is good. And you want it to be a consistent temperature. So to make it a consistent temperature, what you do is you take one of these, right? You take this sign here, you go out into the room, over to the left, and you put this on the thermostat so that no one touches the thermostat. Right now it's set to like 66. That's to maintain the temperature. It's hot outside, so it's got to be set a little colder. All right, then we go back into here. All right, you're also going to need your sodium hexametaphosphate solution. All right, I have some made already, but I'll show you how to make some of this. Basically what it is it's a deflocculating agent. So when it's mixed in with the soil sample, it will make sure that the clay particles separate and they don't bunch up together and sink. We want those particles separate so they can settle naturally. All right, and then so from here, how we're going to make that solution is one, we've got our Bunsen burner type thing here. We've got a large beaker. This is the stirring rod. This can usually be found either in the dishwasher rack because it's cleaned, or it's in this drawer right here. All right, this stirring rod is going to be important. I'll show you how that works. You're also going to need some distilled water. This is already open, so I'm going to use this, but you can also find distilled water in this. This actually is in a refrigerator. It's not on or anything, but I keep all the excess distilled water in here. If you ever run out of this is the Bowl and Basket brand. You can literally get this at ShopRite. You can get it at Weiss. It's like $1 per gallon or something like that. So if you run out, you just hit up ShopRite. They've got some. Seek him upstairs for petty cash, or keep your receipt and you can put it as an expense report. Anyway, so you're going to grab your sodium metaphosphate solution. This is the stuff that we use. All right, this has been here longer than I have. I've had to replace this a few times, but yeah, so this is what we use. If you ever run out, you can go up to Jill and bring her this container and she'll order more for you. All right, but what we do is we take this, all right, over to the scale here. We zero that out. Now, you're not going to dump it right onto the scale. That doesn't make any sense. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over here into this cabinet. We've got, these are clean cups here. You bring that over to your scale. You zero it out. And then you take your solution or your salt. You pour this out onto here. We want to get 50 grams. Okay, 50. Good. Shake that around a little bit. Okay, great. So once you've got your 50 grams, I guess you could start this sooner, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this distilled water. This is a beaker. The outside's a little dirty, but the inside is clean. I made sure of it. You can find more of them here. All right, but I'm going to pour 1 liter or 1,000 milliliters worth of distilled water in here. A little bit more. Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this distilled water. You're going to pour this into here. Good. All right, I'm also going to move this out a little bit just so that way it's a little safer. Move this stuff over here. All right. Now to operate this, I'm going to turn it on high. I'm going to turn the stirring adjustment on. And now right now it's not really going to do anything, just vibrate. But what we want is if you go over to the side of the microwave here, these are little magnetic stirrers. And basically how it works is you put that in there. And you see how it's moving because it's the stirring. Once you turn that up, it'll move faster. I keep it close to I keep it like between 2 and 3 because it'll create like a little vortex, and if it gets too much, it'll splash, and you don't want that to happen. So what we're gonna do is basically we're gonna let this heat up a little bit, maybe for about 5 to 10 minutes before I start adding in the powder that we have over here. All right, so while that's going, we'll set up the rest of the test. All right, so what we're going to need to do as well is we're going to turn on this oven right here. Now we're going to take these off the top so they don't like burn or anything. To turn on the oven, it's already set to like around 350 Celsius. You can change it to higher if you want, but the more you turn it up, the more it's going to smell, and 2, like the stuff is really hot in there obviously, and these don't handle the heat, like super hot temperatures, for very long. So I just keep it at 350. That seems to work out. To turn it on, you literally just hit that button and it'll already turn on. It'll start heating up. You've also got your thermometer up here to tell you, but basically the idea with this is you just dry out the sample. All right, I'm going to turn this down a little bit just so it's not making too much noise. All right, so once you've got this solution, if it's already made, you can kind of start here. If it's not made, you can kind of start prepping this as it's being, as that's heating up. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to take these bags. Now these are where your soil samples are going to be. Kyle Patterson, he does a lot of the soil testing. He'll leave samples. If you do the soil testing yourself, make sure you label them kind of consistent with this. So basically what we've got here is the location, Triangle Road, Hillsborough, soil log number 8, 18 inches. So you want the soil log number and you want the depth. Triangle Road, Hillsborough, right? That's the general location, but really we could use the job number or the block and lot. That's an easier identification. I'm gonna have to go ask Kyle now what the job number is for this, or what the address or what the block and lot are, because all of that's going to go on this paperwork here, right? The sample identification, the depth, and then your other general information, job number, client, date collected, all of that stuff. Now I know that this sample was collected the other day. I have it in an email, so that's where I'll get that information. But once you've got this, basically what you're going to do is we have to run it through a sieve before we start testing. Basically, if the sample is too rocky, it's not acceptable for the soil permeability class rating test. All right, so what we do is we go over to here, right? We're going to use, I don't think we need those right now, but we're going to go to this. Oh, actually, I've already got one set up here. All right, put that back. Don't need that for right now. This is the number 10 sieve. I believe this is the one we pass it through. Let me just check our procedure. Pass the sample to be tested, which has been allowed to air dry through a 2 millimeter sieve. I believe that's the number 10. You can come over to here. 2 millimeters, number 10. That's what it is. All right. Again, these samples, I basically let them air dry on the counter. I open the bags and kind of just let them air out. They're not going to be 100% dry. They are going to be a little damp still, but we just need it to be dry enough to pass mostly through this, through this sieve. Now, if you do need it to be really dry, you can either do two things. You can put it in the oven that we're heating. Obviously, don't put it in the bag in the oven, right? Put the, dump it into a metal container and put it in there. Or you can even microwave it. Now, this is not always the most efficient way to do it, but if you are going to microwave it, you want to use a bigger bowl. These are ceramic, so they're microwave safe. You put a big bowl like this, You dump your sample into that, you throw it in the microwave. I usually do like 3 minutes, and then I'll mix it up with a spoon, and then I'll put it in for another 3 minutes, take it out, and let it sit on the countertop. And that's good enough for me for it to dry. But anyway, what we're gonna do here, this stuff is already pretty much air dried. It's not totally dry, but I think it's dry enough to pass through this sieve, no problem. So I'm going to put this camera down here. All right, and I'm gonna take my first sample. Let's do the 18-inch soil log number 8. So I'm gonna take this, dump this into the sieve. I don't even really need to use all of it. I just need a little bit. Give it a little bit of a shake. If you want to be a little more rigorous, you can put one of these lids on top. All right, and as you can see, right, a lot of it went through. Hopefully I can separate this with one hand. Maybe I can't. Okay, one sec. These can be difficult to separate sometimes, but as you can see, we've got it like kind of strained through. This could probably be even more reduced if I were to break up some of these pieces, but I personally really don't care that much to do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zero this out. I'll throw this tin on here, take the measurement, 741. I'll also measure this empty in a little bit. And then I'll, take the measurement of this one, like 860, 868 or whatever it is. And then I'll empty it, take the measurement of this tin. Basically what you're gonna wanna do is on here, on this sheet, you need to have the total sample weight, the weight retained on the 2 millimeter sieve, which is the number 10, and that'll give you the percent coarse fragment. If it's above 75%, you can't use this method. Basically, as long as like the weight of the sample that stays on the number 10 is not too much more than the sample that passes through, you should be good to go. I've never really had this be a problem, but it certainly could be. Basically just by looking at this, I know about half of it. Like these weigh about the same. So, about half of it went through. And again, I could crush this down even more if I cared to. But, I would take those two numbers, I'd throw it on there, make sure that my fragment weight percent isn't off. And, then I should be good to go. For right now, I'm just going to put this off to the side, right? Because this is the stuff I care about. I'm going to zero this back out. I'm going to get another clean tin or a clean ceramic cup. I'm going to note the number, right? Or letter. Sometimes it's a number, sometimes it's a letter. In this case, it's a letter. E. Okay, 76. So what I'm going to do from here is now I'm going to write this. I'm just getting my pen. I'm going to write this on the sheet. I always go, I'm going to just move this here, right? E equals 76 grams. All right, I'm going to zero this out. I'm going to take my spoon. There's also metal spoons, right? This is just the one I'm going to use right now. And I'm basically taking sample here, transferring it in to my cup. The magic number is 40. I want 40 grams. All right, so we're at 40 grams. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take cup E. All right, I'm gonna put this in the oven. This is my oven dry sample that I'm going to use later on, all right? So I put that in there. All right, and since I am doing soil log 8, 18 inches, I'm gonna also mark that. Again, this sample ID is gonna help me remember which one is which. All right, and then, again, for right now, this number, right, if I was doing this for real, I would, write my total weight of the sample and the weight retained, but I already know it's going to be fine, so I'm just going to give this a check mark, and, I'll throw numbers in here later, right? What was, look, I'll do it. I don't want to, be illegitimate, but let's say 625. 625. All right, and we've got 867. All right. And then now I can dump, well, hang on. Yeah, so now what I'll do is just for the sake of this, I'm gonna just dump this so I have a empty weight of this. Zero that. 380. So there's my addition. Minus 380. All right, that was the empty pan, was 380. I'm gonna move this into here for right now. And now, usually you can't just put these on here, right? You're not gonna be able to see the measurements. So what I'll do is I'll take one of these, zero that, and then put this on. And you've got 465. All right, so this math is gonna be our total weight of the sample. The weight retained on the 2 millimeter is going to be this larger number, the 867. In this case, is larger at least, minus the 465. And again, just intuitively, because I've run this test a bunch, I already know that this number is going to be less than the 75%. But when you plug in these numbers into this, it will automatically calculate it for you. And again, if it's less than 75, it's good to go. All right. Anyway, so we're going through the test professionally. There we go. All right. So we still need this, right? Keep in mind, I already did take 40 grams out of it, so the number is going to be slightly off. But again, for this, I don't really care that much because I know that it's already good. I know it's going to pass. So I'm also going to need, I'm going to use this, all right? I'm going to just dump it right into this. All right. I'm putting this on here. I'm going to zero this off, because I'm going to put another 40 grams into my cocktail mixer. That's what I call these things, because that's what they remind me of. It's almost like a shaker tin. All right, we're at 40. We're going to use that in a moment. For right now, I'm going to go back over to here. This has started to heat up a little bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start slowly adding this powder mix. Right, you see how some of it will sink to the bottom, it'll kind of glue down there, it'll become like a caramelized thing. You don't really want that, so that's why you try to turn up the spin a little bit. We're at 3 right now, that's probably pretty good. And then you add this slowly. It'll get kind of cloudy, you let it sit for a little bit, let it mix in. Again, just adding more of this. It gets kind of cloudy, you let it mix. Now you don't really want this to get to a boil, because then it'll start splattering and stuff everywhere, and it just becomes a mess. So don't really let it get that far. I'm just adding the rest of my sample in here. Yeah. All right, and then again, I'm gonna let this, mix up. One of the things I'm also going to do is I'm going to use this stirring rod, and I'm basically going to use this to scrape the bottom, so that way this stuff gets dissolved and doesn't just sit down here. This can be a bit of a process, but if you can see, I don't know how well this is zooming in here, but I'm basically just mixing this up. It kind of sits on the bottom here. It'll clump up into these, like, it's almost like ice or like a slushy type consistency, but I'll scrape it, I'll move this around, I'll stir it, I'll stir the outside, making sure that this is getting mixed in with everything. All right, I'm gonna pause right now just so I can take care of the rest of this. It's gonna take me a little bit of time to make sure this is all mixed in. So I'm going to put this down, pause the video real quick, and when I come back, hopefully we've got this solution figured out. Okay, so now if you look at this, it's pretty much clear. There is like a little like particle that's floating around in there that shouldn't be, but everything else, it's all, there's no more of like the slushy type sugary mix that we added to it. So I'm going to turn this stirrer off now. I'm also going to turn my heat off. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind is this solution is hot. So if you were to use this solution for the test, it would actually raise the temperature of the, of the mixture that you're doing, and that'll impact the test. So you want to let this cool to room temperature. Now, the benefit right now is I already have some of the samples, so I can run the test with what's in here. All right. If you were making this, if you ran out of your solution and you had to make more, you would have to wait for this to air dry, or not air dry, but cool to room temperature. And you definitely do not want to put this in the fridge to cool it faster, because it'll break the glass. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully remove it. Let me set this up here. Maybe you'll be able to see. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to go get my oven mitts here. Put these on. I also like to put this solution inside one of these types of beakers. Again, the outside's a little bit dirty, but the inside is clean. The reason I put it in this container is because I can put the top on it, the cork on the top, and then the solution won't evaporate and change the change the amount. So that's what I want to avoid. I'll take this off of the heat. I will slowly and carefully pour this into here. You don't want to get these gloves wet at all, because if they get wet, their heat resistance basically drains immediately, and you'll burn yourself. So don't get these wet at all. Alright, I just spilled a little bit here. Hopefully that didn't get on my gloves at all. Alright, so I got pretty much all of it out. There's a little bit left in there, but that's fine. And then I take my little cork, put it on top of that, so that way there's no, again, none of the evaporation. And then I'm going to just move this so it's out of the way. I'll probably put this just over here. Alright. Good. So now it's just going to sit there, and it's basically going to cool. I got to remember not to touch it. And now this solution is a mild irritant, so if you get it on your skin, you're going to want to wash. It's not going to like burn you or anything, or melt your skin or anything. It's going to irritate a little bit, and you definitely don't want that. So it's a mild irritant. It's not too bad. All right, good. Now that we've got that solution figured out, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this. All right, it's gone down to 39 grams somehow, so we're going to add a little bit more. All right, we're back up to 40. Now, what we do here, again, if you read the procedure, it says one thing. It's not that I'm not following the procedure, it's just that I've done this test enough times that I know that the exact measurements don't particularly matter for the distilled water. What really does matter is how much of the solution you add. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this clean, yep, that's clean. We're going to take this clean graduated cylinder, and we're going to pour, this is our room temperature solution. We're going to pour 100 milligrams, or milliliters, not milligrams, sorry. Perfect. We're going to take this 100 milliliters, add that to this. All right. Then again, the procedure says to add 400 milliliters of distilled water, but I know that this doesn't really matter for this particular step. I'm just going to fill it up so that maybe there's another like quarter or a fifth left of space in here. And then I'm going to make some margaritas. I'm going to take this, put it underneath here. When you push it up on this, that's going to start it. And there's also a shelf for it to sit on here. And basically I'm going to let this mix for a minute or two. There are higher settings. I can turn it higher. But I like to just keep it on the #1 setting just so that way it doesn't splash. I'll let that mix up. While that's mixing, I'm going to get the rest of my stuff set up. I'm going to use this. This was only used for distilled water before. I'm going to use this again. I'm going to move this so that way I don't knock into it accidentally. I'm going to grab this. All right, so that's probably enough. It's nice and mixed up. Now you got to be careful pulling this out, right? Because one, you don't want it to splash too much. All right, then I'm gonna take this. This is the part where I'm gonna put the camera down. So hang on one second. Let's see, I'm gonna put this here. Hopefully I'll be able to see. All right, good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pour this margarita mix into this graduated cylinder. Now once you pour it in, you're going to notice that there's like some stuff left over in there. To get that out, what I do, you can do a couple of things. You can pour more distilled water into the cup, mix it around and pour it in, or you can use one of these fancy doohickeys. Right? This is the distilled waters in here. Now don't get it confused. There's another one that has tap water in here. This is just for cleaning, right? Distilled water is for the test, tap water is for cleaning. So you take your distilled water one, you tilt this, and you give it a little bit of a spritz in here. That gets the rest of the soil out of there, or the soil solution, the soil margarita, whatever it is at this point. And again, I'm just making sure that I'm getting all these particles. I don't know how much this really affects the test if I get every single last particle, but you know, I like to just make sure I'm doing it right. All right. And then once you've got it here, now what you want to do is you want to fill this the rest of the way up with distilled water. That's why we were able to just kind of fill this by eye rather than using 400 milliliters before, because I know that we're just going to fill this the rest of the way up. All right, so I'm going to take my distilled water. I might not have enough of this left, so we'll see. Ooh, I might just have enough. All right, we filled it to the 1,000 milliliter mark. Now we do the shaking. All right, this is sometimes the most frustrating part of the test, just because it makes a little bit of a mess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a film on top of this because we don't have any stoppers that will prevent it from leaking. So this is what I use. I use this Parafilm lab stuff. You saw where I grabbed this from before. It's in this cabinet up here. All right, what I do is I pull out a square section. All right, it's kind of stuck right now. I don't know why. Hang on. All right, this is kind of annoying here. Hang on. Let me open this up. All right, I don't know what it was getting caught on, but we're good to go now. All right, I'm going to open this up. Basically, I want to cut not one single line, but 2 lines, right? So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 of these squares here. I use my scissors. All right, I'll take this this wax top off and throw this out. And this is what I want, right? This see-through film. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over the top of my graduated cylinder. I'm going to press the sides down and basically pinch it so that way it covers the entire top surface and it kind of molds to the side a little bit. All right. Once I've got that, I'm going to move this back over here, move these out of the way. Another thing you're going to need is a timer. I'm going to use my phone as a stopwatch here. All right. Let's see, we'll go to clock and stopwatch. All right. This is where you're going to need to write things down too, so I'm going to get ready to write. Clear my area a little bit. Okay, good. So at this point, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to shake this up. Now, one of the things I'll also do is I'll take some rubber bands. 2 of these is usually good. These, you can find them all over the soil lab, but if you ever run out of these, the print room next door has a bunch more, so you can just grab some from the print room. But I'll rubber band on top of this just as an extra way to hold this on. All right. Also, before we do this, just to get things set up a little bit more, you're going to want to have a hydrometer ready to go. This is where I store the hydrometers. Any of them work, but I'm going to just use this one. All right, I'm going to have this ready to go over here because I'm going to need to use that. All right, I've got my phone ready to go. I'm going to put this down so you can see me shaking things up. From here, once it's covered, you put your hand on top of it. I also like to pinch the little opening, right, the lip, so that way it doesn't come out that side. And you basically turn it upside down and right side up. It usually like about 10 times. But you just do this a little bit so it gets nice and mixed up. Again, if you sealed it well, it shouldn't leak too much. It will leak a little bit, but again, as long as it doesn't leak out like half this thing, you should be fine. All right. Once I put it down, I start my stopwatch. Boom. I'm going to carefully remove this without getting liquid in my eyes or anything like that. Good. I'm going to get my hydrometer ready. All right. And then the moment that this thing hits 20 seconds, that's when I'm going to put my hydrometer in. And 20 seconds. There we go. Jesus. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, now I'm going to let this go. Once it hits 40 seconds, I'm going to take a reading. All right, it's at 38 right now, 39. 40 seconds. All right, I'm taking my reading. That's 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 and a half. All right, I'm going to write that down. 29.5. And I'm writing that down under R1. That's the first reading, 29.5. I'm going to reset my stopwatch. I'm going to take this guy out. It's usually dripping, so I'll put it on one of the many microfiber towels we have lying around here. And then I have to do this again. And I want to have a similar or the same number, right? It's got to be like within 0.5. If it's not within 0.5, you got to do it as many times as you need to get either the same number, the same reading again, or within 0.5. All right, so throw this on here. Again, I'm going to shake it. Again, hopefully if you're holding this well, it won't leak too much, but there are times where it'll leak a little bit, so you just got to be careful. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to start my stopwatch again. And that's if I can get into my phone. Okay, I'm going to just give it one more shake. So that way, boom, start my stopwatch. Start taking this piece off. Again, hopefully you don't splash yourself here. You want to try not to jostle this, just because there's particles settling, and that's the whole point. So try not to move this. Sometimes you can't avoid it though. And then now I'm going to take this. It's at 20 seconds right now, so I'm dropping this in. I know my last reading was close to 30, so I always try to put it close to where the last reading was so it doesn't bob as much, because the longer it bobs, you know, the harder it is to take your reading. It's at 35 seconds right now, so once it hits 40 seconds, I'm going to take my reading. 39, 40. All right, so I'm looking, it's not quite 30, it's 29.5 again, I would say. All right, so 29.5. All right, now what I'm gonna do is, before I do this last shake, I'm gonna take my hydrometer out. I'm going to just take the temperature of the water. It should be room temperature or very close to it. Yeah, right now I'm at 76. Again, 76 is a little bit warmer than I want to be, but it's hot outside. It's hard for it to regulate temperature in here, and you know, people are going in and out of doors, so this is probably the best I'm going to get, at least for this day of testing. Okay, good. So I've got my temperature 76. There is a spot to write it down on here, but this is for the calibration, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just want to make sure that the temperature of my solution matches the temperature of this calibration, or at least it's like within a degree or so. All right, so I'm just going to write 76 degrees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shake this one more time since we've got a consistent result. All right, we've got 29.5 is our number. That's consistent. So I'm going to throw this rubber band on again. All right, shaking this again. And then now I'm going to put it down somewhere, and I'm not going to touch it for 2 hours. All right, I'm going to take this off just so that way I don't have to do it later. I always throw this out after I use it for one of these tests. Just because when I do this, when I do a replicate sample or when I do another, I just want to use a fresh sheet. But again, now I'm basically going to let this sit for 2 hours. I'm going to note the time. All right, I've got to watch on, but 2:47 on my phone. All right. So what I do is for the 2 hour, I'll write 2:47. That means at 4:47, I need to be back here taking my reading. All right. Let me just show you what my formula sheet or my data sheet looks like. So again, you know, from here, I'm putting this in, right, at 76 degrees, 2:47. So I know at 4:47 I need to check, and I'm going to put the hydrometer back in here, take the reading, and then I'm going to continue the test from there. All right? One other thing you're going to have to do, you can't just use the one. You need to do a replicate sample. So basically, I'm going to repeat the process, everything that I just did. I'm going to, grab a cocktail mixer, right? I'll rinse this thing out, but I would grab my cocktail mixer, I'd put it on here, I'd zero it out, I'd put 40 grams of soil in there, I'd put 100 milliliters of our solution into here, and then I'll dump extra distilled water into here. I'll mix this up, right? Let it mix for like a minute, take this out. I'll put it in another graduated cylinder up here, right? I'll fill it up the rest of the way. I'll shake it up, right? And I'll take the readings the exact same way that I did for this first one. And so that way, that replicate sample will let me know, okay, I did the test correctly. I have consistent results between the two of them, and that's important, all right? I'm going to run the replicate sample, but I'm not going to video it because, just to save some time and battery. So I'm running the replicate test right now, and again, I just put it in for my first shake. It's at 35 seconds right now. If I get something close to 29.5, I'll know that it's a pretty consistent result. And we're at 40 seconds. 25, 26, 27, 28. All right. Good. Reset. Again, 28 is very close to 29.5. I'll shake it again. I'll see what we get. All right, come on, rubber bands. There we go. Gonna have to get my phone. Ready to go. Hopefully we get 28 again, or 28.5. That would be consistent for this sample. All right, 20 seconds. And now we wait. 37, 38, 39. All right, we're at 25, 6, 7, 28. So again, we've got 2 rounds of 28. It's not quite the 29.5, but it's very close. All right. If I got something for this and it was like 14 or even 20, that would, that would make me a little bit concerned. I'd wonder why this is so much different, considering it's the same soil. In the past, there has been one time where the second test was a totally different number, and I realized that I didn't add the sodium metaphosphate solution, and I just had distilled water, and that's why it was different. So again, it's a good way to troubleshoot to see if you're running the test correctly. And that's the whole purpose of running the replicate samples. You want to make sure that you have a consistent result and you're not making a mistake with that first one. All right, that's why you'd have to run 2 of these at the same time. All right, good. Now I'm going to let this one sit for 2 hours. This is my replicate sample. All right. I'll note the time is 2:57. So at 4:57, I would come back and take my second hydrometer reading. Now, the thing with this test, this just a little bit of information. It's best to start it in the morning because you can run more than just these 2 samples. Like right now, if I was going to, prepare any more soil samples, the 2-hour would be over after 5. And again, if I don't mind staying late, staying after 5 o'clock, yeah, sure, I would run it. That's no problem. All right, but if I'm doing it in the morning, if it runs over, because it does take time to set these samples up, I'm just going into the workday and I'm not really going to take it too long. There are times where I'll do, where I can have like 8 of these going at once, and by the time the first batch is finishing, I'm finishing up with another batch, and so I can stack them together pretty well, and I can do a lot of testing in one day. For this particular example, I already knew that it was going to take me more than 1 day. I also have a sand sample for septic that I want to film and run the sieve and a 2 Permeability test and video that. So that's what I'm going to do while I wait these 2 hours for these samples to be done. But we'll check back and finish this video once these 2 hours are up and we can take our final reading. Okay, so it's 2 hours later for the first replicant, and so we're going to take the hydrometer reading, right? It's 4:47 right now. If you remember, we finished that test at 2:47. We waited 2 hours for the clay particles to settle per the procedure of the test. And again, now we're going to let the hydrometer stabilize and we'll get a reading. The other sample, the replicate sample, we'll be able to test at 2:57, so 10 minutes later, 10 minutes from now. All right. We are pretty much getting there. It's not really moving anymore. You can see that it's at the number 10. We can go down a little bit extra. We're at 10, 11, 12. It's at about 13, I would say, right now. All right. Again, the temperature has been pretty consistent. We've actually gone to about 70 degrees. I turned on the air conditioner for this test, so it's actually at about 70. Again, you usually don't want the temperature to change during the test, but we'll check what it is at this temperature. All right, so there we go. 13. We're going to write that down in our form. 2 hour, 13. And that's pretty common. It's common to see it reduce either in half or reduce by a pretty significant amount. There are times where it doesn't reduce that much. That's also possible, but so far this you know, this makes a good amount of sense. Now, what we do from here, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna pour it through one of our sieves. Now, you know, the sieve that we originally used broke. So we've been using this one, this silver one here that we got from China for pretty cheap. But this one is just as good as the other one. It's the number 325. All right, this is the only one we have, so don't break it. If you do, you're gonna have to get another one ordered from Jill. All right, but what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna set this up so you can see what I'm doing here. Actually, maybe putting it over here would be best. Yeah, that might be. Let me move this a little bit. Put this here. All right. I'm gonna take my graduated cylinder. I'm gonna pour it into this sieve. Basically, the water will pass through, but the soil will remain. I give it a little bit of a shake. This usually does not get all of it out, so what I do here a lot of the time is there's a beaker already sitting in the sink. I'll rest this on top of the beaker. I'll turn this guy on here. All right, and then I take this, turn it upside down over the sieve, and I just kind of spray it on the inside, getting the last little bit out, being very careful to make sure that it ends up in my sieve here. All right, I think that got everything. So when you finish, it should look something like this. It's kind of like a soupy mess. But then from there, we open this up, put it in there, and dry it out. All right? And then we would wait the 10 minutes, or at this point, it's only, it's about 6 minutes or so for this to be finished. All right, so it's the next day. We're going to continue the soil permeability class rating test. What we're going to do is we're going to go over here. We're going to return on this oven, right? We're going to need that for later. We're going to take this out. This is nice and dry. I'm also going to take this out. This is for the 2 permeameter test. But anyway, we're going to take this. We bring this, well, we could do this a couple places. We'll do this right here, all right? So basically we need to take what's in here. Now, we could either run it through the 2 sieves and get it out of the way, or we can, you know, dry this other sample, which we're gonna have to do anyway. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get my brush. I'm going to get a clean cup. This is strictly to store this this sample. And basically I'm going to brush this because it does stick to the sieve sometimes when it's nice and dry. All right. And now I'm very carefully going to direct this into that cup, trying to get every single particle in that cup. And you may have to brush a little bit extra just to make sure. All right, here we go. All right, there we go. So we have everything in our cup. Again, we're going to use this later. We got to remember which replicate this is. Obviously, this is replicate A because it was the first one that was done. What we're going to do now is I left this in here overnight. Not a big deal. What we're going to do now is we're going to dump out this through this sieve and throw that in the oven to dry that out. All right, so we're going to go over here. I'm going to use this. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to put this over here to dry. This one is dry. I'll put that away in a minute. But now we've got our sample here. There's a bit of water, so I'm going to try to... Is this going to leave? No? There's a lot of water sitting on top of this, and I don't want it to be like that. But when I put it in the oven, I gotta drain it slowly, unfortunately, because I don't want to spill any of this out. But I don't want to put this whole... I'm just tapping the bottom just to displace some of the particles a little bit. There we go. Okay, that's much more manageable here. Okay, so we're going to take this and we are going to put this in the oven. While we wait for that to dry out, I am going to finish the 2 permeability test video. See you in a bit. Alright, so while we're waiting for that last sample to dry out in the oven, we're going to run the calibration test for this hydrometer. So basically what that entails is you take a clean graduated cylinder, you take your solution, and you need a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder. Basically, I'm going to take 100 milliliters of this solution, the same that we use for the test. Ooh, will I have enough? Yes, I do. All right, we got my 100 mils. Dump that in. And then I'm going to fill this up with distilled water, just like the test. It's basically, I'm running the same test as before, but with no soil this time. And the reason why I do this is so I can get a correction factor for the hydrometer. And so, you know, from here, what I'm going to need to do is mix it up. So again, I'll bring you along with me. I will go over here. I guess I didn't even put this back yesterday. And then I will take some of this paraffin out. Alright, I'll cut this piece. Take this top off, throw that out. Take my rubber band, take this. And I'll throw it on top. Trying to get these sides pressed down so it doesn't leak as much. I'll throw this rubber band up here. And before I do the shaking, I'm going to take my hydrometer from before and I'm going to just rinse it off because I don't want there to be any leftover soil or anything on there. So I'm going to just rinse this. I'm going to dry it off. And again, I had Jill order these microfiber towels. They work really well. It was like super cheap to get a huge package of them, and I just use them for drying my hands, drying equipment. Sometimes I'll wet them and I'll wipe down the surfaces, and I just kind of hang them from here so they can air dry. They're a little bit overdue for like a laundry cleaning, so at some point I will gather all of these up and I'll bring them home and throw them in the washer and dryer, just so that way they're, you know, extra clean. But they're pretty clean, and you can see here, like, one of the things I do sometimes is I'll soak them in a soap solution and squeeze them out a little bit and whatnot, and that cleans them for the most part. Again, it doesn't have to be super perfectly clean. It's mostly used as a drying surface and to wipe things down. I don't know. That's just something I do. But anyway, we got our hydrometer. It's clean. Be careful with these. You don't want to drop them. All right, I'm going to turn you to face this way. All right. I'm going to have my hydrometer ready to go off to the side. I'm going to shake this up a little bit, right? So that way we're getting it all mixed up together. Again, I use this motion because this is what it describes in the code. It says to like turn it upside down and right side up again a few times. All right, put that down there, take this off. I only need to do this once, so I'm going to just throw this out now. All right, I'm going to take the hydrometer, drop it in, and I'm basically going to let that thing get to a baseline. I'm going to put this data here. The RC is going to be the reading I get, and the temperature is the temperature. All right, so right now, it is still moving. This is clean, so I can just throw that in there, but I'm going to wait for this reading. So we're pretty much stabilized at this point, and we're at about a 6. All right, so I'm going to write down 6 for my RC, which is the current reading of the hydrometer. I'm going to take this out now and put that on a thing to dry, and I will grab the temperature of the water. The temperature of the water, you would assume, is also the temperature of the room, which is 70 degrees right now. All right, so 70 degrees, and our reading is 6. And when you put that in there, when you input those numbers, the sheet will automatically create a corrected hydrometer reading for you. So you don't have to do any type of extra math. But that number is important, and you want that number to be the same as when you're running the test. We started the test yesterday, and it was like 76 degrees in here, but I turned like all of the air conditioning on that I could find, and I turned it super low, so it actually got down to about 70, you know, within like a couple minutes of starting that. So again, 70 is the number that we're using here. Good, so I'm going to check in on that other sample over here. We will see if it is dry. All right, it does look pretty dry. So I'm going to take it out of the oven. Turn this over here. I'm going to knock it on the side a little bit. Now let me just put this down for a second. It is starting to get a little hot on my gloves. Really, I need to like get a new pair of these. These are super old. These have been here longer than I have, and who knows when they first got these. They don't even make them like this. American made. They don't even make them like this anymore. But anyway, all right. What I'm going to need is I'm going to need the number 60 sieve. Again, this is outlined in the procedure. If you read the procedure, I keep the number 60 over here. Right? It should look like this. Number 60. By the way, if you ever are missing sieves, they're usually in this general area, but you can also find additional ones down here. There's a whole bunch of extra sieves in there. The only one that I don't have extras of is the 325, unfortunately. I have been meaning to ask Jill maybe to order another one, but, you know, I'm making do with just one for right now, and it seems to be working out. So, from here, what I'm going to do, I'm I'm going to take an empty container. I'm also going to just wipe it out, make sure there's no sand in there. So I'm going to go over here real quick. Make sure there's no soil particles in here. What I'm going to do now is I'm basically going to put this number 60 on top of this empty one. I'm going to take my very hot plate here. Again, remember to put these gloves on because this is still hot. Yeah, it's still hot. I mean, it will air cool pretty quickly, but it's still hot, and you wouldn't want to pick this up without gloves on. So I'm basically going to take this air-dried sample, scrape it into the number 60 sieve. I do have a patch. This is definitely like a higher clay content that's kind of stuck there. It's not brushing off very well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into here, and I have a metal brush, and this brush usually gets it. You just have to be careful. You got to be gentle with this, right? You don't want to break this sieve. This particular sieve is very fine, but get a little brush action here. Okay, and at long last, you can see we got rid of it. At long last, we're good. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to shake it up a little bit, right? A good amount will pass through. Just to be safe with this one, do I have a clean lid somewhere? I have a clean lid over here. Alright, I'm going to just shake it up here as well. This is probably overkill. But just want to make sure all those particles are broken up. Alright, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to direct this over here. I'm going to weigh my number 60, zero this out. Alright, so the number is 364. Now remember, this is the second replicate. This is the one that came out of the oven second, so I have to put this for sample B. Alright, I'm going to move this over here. So what I'm doing here, in the very bottom piece of this is where I'm filling these numbers out. Alright, I'm at 364 for sample B, retained on the number 60. Once you weigh it, we can discard this. I'm going to get this empty one. I don't know if I have this recorded up there, but 356 is the number. So it was 364 minus 356, and that will get me the weight of the sample that was retained on this sieve. All right. What I'm going to do after that is there's going to be a little bit of, it's hard to see, but there's a very, very, very fine material in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this through the original sieve that was used to dry the sample. Alright, so this is cooled off enough that I can touch it comfortably. Again, you want to be careful. But now I'm going to take this very fine powder. I don't have a lid that fits this, so you kind of have to just shake it around. Do a little bit of this action, right? Think of it like a cymbal. It is going to throw some dust in the air, so if you want to wear a mask, that's one option. Or just to have good ventilation. And And we don't need to put anything under it because we don't care about anything that comes out of it. That doesn't matter for this test, and it's going to be so minuscule that it doesn't really apply. I mean, you would think about it, right? We pour the water through this to begin with, so we don't really care about anything that's coming out of it, and that's per the procedure. So anyway, I have my sample in here. I'm going to weigh this. I'm being careful not to spill it. 252. I'm going to write that down here, 252. And I can discard this now. And I'm going to weigh the empty. 246. So 252 minus 246, and that will get my weight that was retained on this one. From there, what you do is you take these two numbers, you add them up to get the total weight, and that will tell you the fine plus very fine sand. All right? We're going to do the same thing for reading A. All right? So I'm going to go over here. This is the cup that we put reading A in, and I'm basically going to do the same process. I'm going to take my empty pan. Actually, I was using this one before. Take my empty pan, the number 60, put it on top, put that in, take a brush, make sure all of it gets in there. Okay, spotless. Give this a little shake. I'm not even going to put the lid on this one. There's definitely no particles sticking together. Okay. Good. Alright. I'm going to take this guy off. Put this guy on. 364. That's exactly what we got for the other one. I'm going to discard this. And now, you probably could just weigh this in the pan, since, you know, all of this should theoretically be kept on top of this. But, you know, we'll go by the procedure. Usually what they would do is you would have the empty pan, the 325 on top of it, and then the 60 on top of that. But again, the 325 that we originally had broke, so... and now this one doesn't quite fit. That was me just trying to be cheap and trying to get a less expensive sieve. I could have gone and gotten like the $200 one that would fit on top, but you know, in my thinking, it didn't really matter, especially the way I run the test, and you know, this works just as well. And I didn't think that I really needed it to all stack on top of each other, and so I was able to get this smaller one for like 80 bucks rather than 200 something. So save the company money, and it works out pretty well. So again, I don't have any issues with it. If somebody disagrees with my decision, I mean, again, I'm really the only one that runs these tests right now, other than sometimes Anthony. And, you know, so ultimately, I thought it was okay, and it's been working out so far. Anyway, I'm putting this on here. Okay, 250. So that's a little bit lower than what we got before, but that's fine. It's still very close. And now, we've only got one piece left of this test. I'm going to discard this. You might be asking, what is that? Well, it's that sample that we threw in this oven originally. That original 40-gram sample that we did yesterday. I take this out. It's in the same cup it was in. It definitely was dry already. I didn't need to leave it in there. I probably shouldn't have, but that's okay. Now it's just hot. I got to be careful. But I'm putting this on here. First, I need to zero this out. Zero this out. Putting this on here. All right, 111. So cup E is 111 now. I'm going to write that down. And if you remember yesterday, we weighed the cup and it was 76. So it's 111 minus 76. And that gives you your oven dry weight. And you're just putting that in up here. Again, you want to keep track of this, because if you start running multiple tests at a time, you're going to lose track of which one is in which cup. So that's why I always write down the cup letter or number, and then I write the weight of it, and I'll write it on the sheet for the sample that I'm testing, all right? And then that's that. You basically just bring this upstairs. At the end of the test, you're going to get a corrected hydrometer reading, which is going to give you the percent sand and percent clay. This is also going to give you information, but once you have the percent sand and percent clay, in this spreadsheet, there's a soil triangle, and you basically have to use the soil triangle. There's also an image saved in the reference folder that you can blow up a little bit better. You can see it a little bit better. There's also this guy, right? This is the soil triangle. So, say you had a 70% sand sample, you would go down to the 70 here, and say you had a 20% clay sample, right? You would follow this line from the 70 up here until it hits the 20 for the clay. It would meet right here, and it would be in the K3 category. K3 pertaining to the permeability class. All right, so that's how you would use that. Again, if you had like a 30% sand and like a 50% clay, you would go to the 30 in the sand. You would go diagonally up here to the 50% clay. You would be right there at K0. All right, K0 is the worst. But that's basically how that would work. Again, if you look on this sheet, it does say for the fine and very fine sand, if the percentage is greater than 50%, you adjust the permeability class to the next slowest class. So if these numbers get plugged in and the percentage comes out to like 75%, for example, and you had a K3 sand, you would have to reduce that to a K2. But that's basically how it works. It's pretty straightforward. And I wish you all the best. Good luck.